First of all, I want to thank Jerry and Jim for inviting me and making me one of the boys. I just love being here. And I'm going to have a very brief introduction and prove that contrary to popular belief, women do not talk as much as men. Although I haven't proven that for the last 2 days. I haven't shut my mouth since I got here. Early on, even before meeting him, my husband thought of Antonio Veciana as one hell of an exile leader. Gate first met and interviewed Mr. Veciana when he was working for Senator Schweiker. Mr. Veciana's son, Tony, recently told me that he was their translator on those early interviews. And he said, at the early meetings, he witnessed his father's response to my husband's questions with yes or no. And then he said he witnessed how his father's careful and hesitant responses grew to become more elaborate as his trust in my husband grew. We've all read in the last investigation how my husband in his mind fell off his chair when Mr. Veciana mentioned that he happened to see Lee Harvey Oswald with Maurice Bishop in the Southland Center in Dallas in September of '63. I had a similar reaction this November when I received a letter from Mr. Veciana identifying Maurice Bishop as David Atlee Phillips. Until then, every book on the assassination told how my husband absolutely believed that David Atlee Phillips, CIA chief of the Western Hemisphere, was Maurice Bishop. But then they said, but Mr. Veciana has never definitively identified him, and that's the way it ended. Gate understood all his reasons, which he gives in his book, The Last Investigation. And he always respected his reasons and pushed them just so far. I'm a lot pushier than Gate was. I believe that Mr. Veciana consented to attend this conference for many reasons, foremost of which I think is a respect and a confidence that he has developed for you researchers who have given so much to prove that President Kennedy was assassinated as the result of a conspiracy. And I believe that respect and confidence originated in the warm personal relationship that was so mutually trusting with my husband, Gaten Fonzi. That final trip that Gate wanted to make to Washington with Sylvia Odio and Antonio Veciana was thwarted by the bureaucracy, and Gate was so frustrated over that. He felt that he had let his friend down after all his promises and assurances. So I'm especially happy that Mr. Veciana is here today to speak the truth. And I am so proud that I'm allowed to introduce my husband's hero, Antonio Veciana.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fernand Amandi. I'm going to be translating for Mr. Veciana. I just want to set a couple of ground rules in a sense that he asked me to share with you all today. His son, Carlos, who is here, is going to make a very brief statement that will quickly put to rest any lingering questions, because what he feels is the most important thing to accomplish in this session is to have your questions and have him answer them to the fullest discretion. He is prepared to answer every question on every subject that has to do with this case, and is honored and proud to do so today. So with that, I'm going to introduce his son Carlos, who is going to read his statement in English, and then Mr. Veciana will, of course, entertain any and all questions that you may have for him directly.
I know you're all here to listen to my father, but I'm going to throw a little curveball here. At the request of my sister, I want to make a quick family statement. I must admit that despite being Antonio Veciana's son and teaching American history for a dozen years, I have not shared the passion which is evident in the people in this room about the Kennedy assassination. In part, this has been out of respect for my father. Respect because whenever I asked, he told me he did not want to speak about it because he wanted to protect me. Yet it was a daily fact of my life, whether it was an encounter at a restaurant with an admirer, a student Googling my name and finding out who my father was, or my college roommate telling me that my father was on Inside Edition. My family had for a while encouraged my father because of his age to come forward. He has already written a sort of memoirs which he hopes will be published by the end of the year. Then this summer, Marie Fonzi came to visit and asked my father to come to the conference. We spoke of Gaydon and my recollections of, as a young boy, of his many phone calls and interviews with my father, who later I would begin to translate it when my brother moved out. And sitting on the red couches with the plastic lining that my skin used to stick to and I hated. I also was a translator, and as I translated, I noticed and understood that each man had a certain respect for each other that even as a boy you could tell. It became evident to my family and I that my father's attendance was paramount at this conference. Despite some health issues, my father, understanding the importance of his story, has come here to speak. While I'm here to help him get around, he has given me the honor to read this statement. But before I do, I would like to thank Fernand Amandi, who was instrumental in convincing and planning my father's trip here and will serve as his translator. Okay, now what you guys all came here for. On November 22nd, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. In reality, what happened that day was a coup d'etat. President Kennedy's death was a result of a conspiracy planned by CIA operatives and supported by a handful of high-ranking military officers and members of the mafia. The conspirators believed that the president was a traitor who had jeopardized national security by establishing a foreign policy of dialogue and conciliation with the traditional enemies of the United States. I want to unequivocally state that Maurice Bishop was David Atlee Phillips. Here are the factors that point to a conspiracy. I traveled to Dallas at the end of August or beginning of September of 1963 to meet with Maurice Bishop, my CIA handler. We had agreed to see each other in the lobby of a downtown Dallas bank. There I observed Bishop with a young man I later identified without a doubt as Lee Harvey Oswald. This encounter was unplanned. It would not have happened had I not arrived to the interview 15 minutes before Bishop expected me. 2, Bishop confirmed to me in a conversation that Oswald had traveled to Mexico on Bishop's order. Bishop tricked Oswald into taking that trip to secure a visa from the Cuban consulate, though Bishop knew the authorities there would never grant Oswald such a visa. The reason for this trip was to create a trail that would link Oswald to Fidel Castro and help focus the blame of the planned assassination on Castro. 3, 2 months after President Kennedy's assassination, Bishop asked my opinion of Guillermo Ruiz, a member of the Cuban G2 assigned to the Cuban consulate in Mexico City. Guillermo, now deceased, was married to my cousin Nilda Veciana. I had always maintained a very cordial relationship with both. Bishop proposed I asked Guillermo to seek asylum in the United States, where he would receive a large sum of money to declare that Oswald had visited Mexico in September of 1963 to discuss assassinating Kennedy with Castro intelligence officials. Later, Bishop asked me to forget the whole thing involving my cousin Guillermo Ruiz. 4, before being murdered, Jack Ruby, Lee Harvey Oswald, declared that he was a scapegoat in the assassination. This statement suggests he was not working alone. Dr. Charles Crenshaw, surgeon at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, tended to the president when he was brought in after being shot. Dr. Crenshaw observed that Kennedy had a small entry wound in his throat. He publicly said that, based on his experience, this was the entering point of a bullet that exited through the back of Kennedy's head. In 1992, Crenshaw wrote a book, Conspiracy of Silence, pointing out that the fatal shot came from the front, not the back, as the public was led to believe. He had kept silent all those years. He admitted because he feared that those who were bold enough to assassinate a president would not hesitate to eliminate a simple doctor as well. 5, several circumstantial witnesses who could provide disturbing testimony in the Kennedy assassination died mysteriously. One of the most puzzling cases was that of George Mohrenschildt, a Soviet exile who served as an informant for both the FBI and the CIA. Mohrenschildt was Oswald's sponsor when he returned from the Soviet Union and moved to Dallas. Several years later, investigator Gaetan Fonzi found Mohrenschildt in a small Florida town, and with the help of his daughter, Alexandra, made an appointment to interview her father. The interview never happened. He committed suicide hours before the appointment. Authorities found Fonzi's business card in his shirt pocket. And lastly, Robert Kennedy Jr. and his sister Rory attended a press conference at the Winspear Opera House in Dallas in November of 2013 to mark the 50th anniversary of their uncle's assassination. During that event, Robert Kennedy Jr. told the media that he and his father were convinced that a second gunman had shot the president. Thus, by stating that more than one person was involved in the shooting, he admitted to the belief of a conspiracy. This begs the question, why did Robert Kennedy Sr. never publicly express his opinion of his brother's assassination?
So you've heard the key statements, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Veciana confirms that David Atlee Phillips was Maurice Bishop, confirms that Lee Harvey Oswald was sent to the Mexican consulate in September of 1963 under the direction of David Atlee Phillips or Maurice Bishop in a planned, staged event to get a visa from the Cuban consulate to Cuba that he knew in advance would be rejected. So Mr. Veciana would like to take any questions that you may have. If there's any questions, please make your way to the microphone, and he'll spend the balance of his time answering any questions that you have.
Okay, I have two questions. If you can ask him, when did Phillips tell him about him sending Oswald to Mexico? And number two is, did he get the impression that Oswald and Phillips were really friendly and they had met on several occasions?
Bueno, mira, primero, nunca me dijo Bishop que era Phillips. De aquí en adelante voy a decir Phillips.
He says from here on out he's going to call him Phillips, just for clarity's sake.
Nunca me dijo que él envió a Oswald a México. Pero yo voy a hacer una revelación. Oswald fue a México engañado por Phillips. Porque hay que analizar esta conspiración. En primer lugar, yo fui una persona entrenada para ser un conspirador.
First and foremost, he wants you to understand the backstory of how all of this happened. He's going to reveal to you why he believes Oswald was tricked into going to the Mexican embassy, the Cuban embassy in Mexico. First and foremost, one must understand that he was trained to act as a conspirator. That was one of the things that the CIA engaged with him to do, given the nature of his very sensitive work.
El entrenamiento y la experiencia de los años me convirtieron en un conspirador profesional. Y solamente me va a entender a mí lo que han sido conspiradores profesionales.
Over the years of his training and his experience in dealing with the CIA and Bishop and Phillips and others, he learned how to become a professional conspirator, what it meant to conspire in a professional sense. Only those that have had that training and experience and background will understand the revelations he's going to make.
Un grupo nunca la CIA oficialmente como organismo hizo un meeting para decidir matar al presidente.
The CIA never had an official meeting where they said, hey, here's where we're going to plan on the murder of the president.
Pero un grupo de personas que pertenecían a la CIA, encabezado por David Phillips, decidieron matar al presidente porque lo consideraban traidor y que estaba poniendo en peligro la seguridad nacional.
But he happens to know that a group of officials working within the CIA got together with the clear plan to assassinate and murder the president because he thought he was a traitor to the national interest of the United States.
Desde entonces, algunos mandos militares aceptaron la muerte de Kennedy.
Once that decision was made, and from that point forward, there were segments within the military leadership of this country that also accepted and understood the plot to kill the
Y fue
president.
una conspiración donde intervinieron algunos mafiosos.
And it was a conspiracy plot that also integrated the use of certain elements of the mafia.
Como profesional conspirador, puedo decir que los pequeños detalles que las relaciones mías con Phillips fueron los que me convencieron a mí y que lo que realmente sucedió en la muerte de Kennedy.
As a professional conspirator who both worked with Phillips and knew how Phillips operated, the little details over the years accumulated is what led him to believe that the assassination was undertook in the way he just described.
Primero, yo no, contestando a la pregunta, no sé qué familiaridad, porque fue tan breve la vez que yo vi a Lee Harvey Oswald con Kennedy, que diga con Phillips, que yo no puedo contestar de si eran muy familiar o no las relaciones de ellos.
In response to Mr. DiEugenio's question about Phillips and Oswald, the encounter was so brief that it wasn't a sufficient amount of time to determine the level and degree of familiarity that one had had with the other. Although it was clear they were engaged, they were in conversation, and they obviously knew each other.
Pero decididos los conspiradores a matar al presidente, estaban buscando la ocasión, el tiempo y el lugar para matarlo.
But given the plans of the perpetrators and the conspirators, they were looking for the time and the place and discussing when the president would be assassinated.
Y además era importante que alguien cargara con la culpa del asesinato.
Just as important and paramount was making sure that there was someone that would be blamed or have the responsibility, the public responsibility for the assassination.
Y ahora la explicación procede con estos antecedentes.
And now the explanation comes with these antecedents, which are very important for you to understand.
Fidel Castro era la persona ideal para culpar de la muerte de Kennedy.
Fidel Castro was the ideal scapegoat for the murder of the president.
En septiembre, 2 meses antes de que asesinaran al presidente, Castro, en la embajada de Brasil en La Habana, había amenazado que al igual que los yanquis estaban tratando de matarlo, él también podría hacer hechos para vengarse de los que trataban de matarlo, matándolos a ellos.
One of the key elements here was Fidel Castro's statement in September of 1963 at the embassy in Brazil, where he said, if foreign leaders were trying to assassinate Fidel Castro, foreign leaders should be worried about a retaliation assassination on their end.
Los pequeños detalles son los que me han convencido de la conspiración, donde estaba Phillips en importante lugar como parte del asesinato.
It's all of the small details and all of the small details at which David Atlee Phillips is at the center of, which convinces him of his participation in the assassination.
Phillips me preguntó a mí que quería confirmar de que si una persona iba al consulado de México, al consulado cubano en México, le daban la visa para viajar a Cuba.
This is the key moment here. Prior to the assassination, Phillips asks Mr. Viciana directly, and this is post-Fidel Castro's statement at the Brazilian embassy, if one were to go to the Cuban embassy in Mexico, would one be able to get a visa to travel to Mexico? To which the response was absolutely not.
Yo había tenido una experiencia personal con un familiar que sin ser político ni ser contrarrevolucionario, por razones de... Era una persona, una mujer que se llamaba Dolores Boer, le habían avisado que su padre estaba falleciendo, estaba próximo a morirse en La Habana. Y fue al consulado cubano para pedir una visa. Y ella nunca había participado en ninguna actividad en contra de Castro. Sin embargo, en el consulado le dijeron que eso tomaba de 4 a 6 semanas porque tenían que enviarlo al Ministerio del Interior cubano, quien era la entidad que autorizaba que se le diese la visa.
The reason he was able to answer Phillips with such authority is because he had a personal experience with needing a visa from the Cuban consulate. He was familiar with a woman who was not political, in no way involved in the anti-Castro activities, who, because of her father's illness, went to the Cuban consulate, was told directly and explicitly there it would take a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks to process anything before a series of requests. Therefore, that's how he was able to answer in the affirmative to Phillips that it would not be an instantaneous visa.
Confirmado eso, no había razón, señor Oswald, para que viajara a Cuba, sino que fue por algún tipo de engaño instruido por Phillips que viajara al consulado y pidiera la visa a Cuba, sabiendo él que se la iban a negar, pero él quería tener el pretexto de que en el plan para culpar a Castro era de que él había ido allí a establecer relaciones con la seguridad del Estado cubano en el asesinato de Kennedy.
So Phillips, knowing beforehand of the difficulties in getting a visa, was able to use that foreknowledge as a pretext, knowing that Oswald will not be able to get that visa, to use it as an activity through which he can stage a very public and clear event. You heard Mr. Hardaway and Mr. Lopez talk about this earlier, that resulted in the Mexico City incident, where Oswald then is not allowed to travel to the island of Cuba because he's not issued a visa instantaneously.
Una persona que estaba en el consulado, que era el cónsul anterior que estaba ya, el cónsul cubano que estaba ya retirándose, de apellido Mirabal.
One of the people that was the direct antecedent to the director of the Cuban consulate at the time was a gentleman named Mirabal. You all remember the consul there at the time was Ascui, but the one that preceded him was Mirabal. And there was an overlap period which just happened to take place during September of 1963 when Mirabal and Ascui were both present at the consulate.
Él me dijo que el inestable de Lee Harvey Oswald se puso tan explosivo y gritaba y chillaba porque él creía, estaba seguro que tenían que darle la visa. Cuando le dijeron que no, que eso dependía de que había que esperar 4 semanas a que lo aprobara el Ministerio de Cuba, estuvieron a punto de llamar a las autoridades para que se lo llevaran del escándalo que fue. Sí.
Later, he asked Mirabal and his son what happened that day, and he says it was a huge incident. When Oswald realized he was not going to get the visa to be able to travel to Cuba, he freaked out, created a huge show and kept insisting, I know I can get a visa, I know I can get a visa immediately. When the whole plan, according to Mr. Veciana beforehand, was that response, because he was directed and told to go to the Cuban consulate, told where he was going to go and get a visa within 24 hours, didn't materialize, which provoked the response and the outburst of Oswald in the consul.
Inmediatamente después del asesinato del presidente, Phillips me planteó, él conocía que Guillermo Ruiz, casado con mi prima, era de la seguridad del Estado cubano, tenía una posición bastante alta, y que estaba en México en ese momento.
Immediately after the assassination, Phillips engages Mr. Veciana and asks him about Guillermo Ruiz, who was a direct relation of Mr. Veciana's, who at the time was working for the Cuban security forces, the G2, in the Cuban consul, and who happened to be at the consul at the time of Oswald's visit in September of 1963.
Él me dijo que tratara de convencerlo para que se exiliara y declarase de que efectivamente Oswald había discutido con miembros de la seguridad del Estado cubano en México el asesinato de Kennedy.
Phillips suggested to Mr. Veciana that he persuade his relative, Mr. Ruiz, to defect to the United States in exchange for significant amounts of funds on the condition that upon his defection, he publicly declare that Oswald came to the Cuban consulate to discuss with members of the Cuban security forces at the consulate plans to assassinate John F. Kennedy.
Yo empecé a tratar de establecer la relación para hablar con Guillermo, pero Guillermo fue trasladado para Cuba.
He attempted, on Bishop's orders, to make contact with Mr. Ruiz to implement this plan that David Phillips had asked to be done, implicating Oswald. But by this point, Mr. Ruiz had been transferred back to Cuba.
Incidentalmente, después Guillermo estuvo en varios otros países como miembro de la seguridad cubana, estuvo en España, estuvo en Inglaterra.
Incidentally, Mr. Ruiz ended up serving in a similar capacity on behalf of the Cuban government in many other countries, including Spain, England, and other parts around the world.
Cuando yo le refiero a Phillips que me estaba haciendo imposible plantearle el asunto a Guillermo Ruiz porque estaba en Cuba, la respuesta que me dio, hágase el caso que yo nunca le hablé de esto.
Wow. When he got back in touch during his next meeting with Phillips and said how difficult it was to make contact again with Ruiz because he'd been shipped back to Cuba, Phillips looked at him and said, "Make sure you never discuss what I just told you ever again."
Creo que contesté la pregunta, ¿no? Alguna otra
Hopefully
pregunta.
that answers your question, Mr. Gigino. Next question.
Yes, David Kaiser. I want to thank Senor Veciana because when I heard about the statement he had made, I wrote him a letter explaining who I was and asking him for any information he had about a long list of names, 20 or 30 names, of people involved in the case who he might or might not have known. And he replied very kindly and politely, and he discussed a number of the names. Everything he said about the names he discussed, the information checked out with what I already knew or elaborated on it. And some of the names, he said, I did not know them. But there were two names that I was very interested in, which, for whatever reason, you did not make any reply about, either that you knew them or you did not. And I have no information that you did, but I want to ask you now to clear it up once and for all. Those two names were Loren Hall, who also used the name Lorenzo Pasillo. He was an American mercenary hanging around Miami, and a friend of his named Larry Howard. So I'm curious as to whether you ever knew either of them.
Una serie de nombres que él pensaba que estaban involucrados. Los únicos que tú no respondías eran Loren Hall y Larry Howard. Era porque tú no los conocías o no quisiste dar
Yo no
información.
recuerdo haberlos conocido.
He doesn't remember having met
Okay.
those individuals.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your reply earlier.
Jeff?
Mr. Veciana, maybe you could tell us, take us back to the beginning of the story. When did you first meet David Phillips? What were the circumstances, and what was the relationship that developed between you at that time? In particular, two things. Did he support your activities financially? And in the spring of 1963, was he involved in attacks that you and your organization were making on ships in the Caribbean?
Dos preguntas. ¿Cuándo fue que se estableció el primer contacto con Phillips contigo? ¿Y cómo fue que se empezó a destacarse la relación? Y segundo, en septiembre de 1963, en esa época del asesinato, dice que si Phillips sostenió financieramente las actividades de la Alfa 66 en explotar los botes en la Marina de la ONU.
Respondiendo a la primera pregunta, a finales del año 59 ocurrió en mi vida tres cosas muy importantes.
It was at the end of 1959 that there were three very life-changing incidents that occurred in Mr. Veciana's life to that point.
Fui elegido presidente de los contadores públicos de La Habana.
He was elected as the president of the certified public accountants of all of Cuba.
Enfrente a una candidatura presentada bajo adversario a mí que se firmaba 26 de julio.
In spite of the campaign against his candidacy for president of that position, the group that identified itself as the 26th of July movement, which was, of course, the Castro government.
Segundo, tuve 2 entrevistas con el Che Guevara.
He also had 2 major interviews and one-on-one meetings with Che Guevara.
Porque increíblemente el comandante Guevara quería reclutarme, primero para que le consiguiera los interventores de las compañías que iba a los bancos y todas las compañías que iban a intervenir.
Principally because Che Guevara believed he could be instrumental in helping the new government of Cuba develop relationships with a lot of the investors that had been working in the bank that Mr. Viciana was affiliated in. Mr. Viciana at the time worked for Julio Lobo, who was the richest man in Cuba with an estimated net worth at the time of $200 million, the key investor corporate interest with the sugar industry of the island.
Y terminó por pedirme que él se había averiguado que yo era hijo de un obrero y cómo podía estar yo al servicio de un millonario. Lo que lo lógico era, es decir, me trató de reclutar para que yo le diera información de Julio Lobo.
It was also striking, that meeting with Che Guevara, because he said to him, how could you, the son of a laborer and a worker, be working for a multimillionaire who's exploiting you? So he believed that Che Guevara was trying to recruit him to give intelligence on his own boss, the multimillionaire Mr. Lobo, back to Che and the government.
Sin embargo, el comandante Guevara, por razones desconocidas, estableció y se enteró de que yo al final era un contrarrevolucionario y no hizo nada por detenerme ni mandarme a fusilar como él acostumbraba a hacer.
Yet, Che Guevara came to the conclusion that Mr. Viciana was actually a counter-revolutionary. Yet, in spite of that, didn't execute the normal protocols, which would have been to round him up, put him in jail, or execute him. And he's always wondered why that happened that way as well.
La tercera cuestión fue que me visitó en el banco donde yo era el controller un señor que yo desconocía quién era, que se presentó con el nombre de Maurice Bishop, me dio una tarjeta como si fuera un comerciante de Bélgica y ya mi nombre había sido muy destacado por el gobierno como contrarrevolucionario.
And it's to Mr. Morley's question, the third incident that happened almost immediately on the heels of that is one day he is in his office at the bank and he was approached by a gentleman who presented himself as a businessman operating on behalf of a Belgian company in Havana and who described himself, introduced himself as Maurice Bishop and said that he had kind of gotten some fame in Cuba as being a counter-revolutionary known to the government.
A mí me habían dado recientemente un acto de repudio, el gobierno cubano,
The Cuban government had recently given a public act of repudiation,
y tuve que salir por la puerta final del banco para evitar la situación penosa que me estaban haciendo.
and he had to leave through the back door of the bank to, remove himself from the somewhat humiliating situation that the government was trying to embark on him.
Pero eso también parece que al publicarse en la prensa, que Philip creyó que yo podía ser alguien importante dentro de...
He believes the publication of that news by the government is what motivated Phillips to reach out to him as a potential asset who could work with him to conspire against the Castro regime.
Me dijo que él estaba dispuesto a ayudarme en la lucha que yo tenía contra el gobierno de Castro.
Phillips said at the first meeting that he was prepared to help him in his fight against the Castro government.
Y me invitó a almorzar en un restaurante que se llama Floridita, que era un centro donde iban muchos norteamericanos, inclusive se hizo famoso porque Hemingway fue un cliente diario casi del restaurante.
And immediately invited him to lunch to the famous restaurant in Cuba, El Floridita, which was known as a restaurant that was patronized by many Americans, and obviously Ernest Hemingway as well, to legend.
Y allí me planteó directamente que él me podía ayudar, pero que tenía que yo pasar una serie de pruebas. Y yo le pregunté si él respondía a la CIA, si era un agente de la CIA, y él me dijo, no te voy a contestar esa pregunta. Si tú quieres mi ayuda, yo te puedo ayudar, pero tienes que pasar primero por una serie de pruebas para comprobar tu personalidad.
Phillips at that lunch immediately said he was prepared to help him in his efforts against the Castro government, to which Mr. Viciana's response was, "Are you a member of the CIA?" David Phillips says, I am not going to answer that question. And said, however, if you are interested in fighting against the Castro government, I can help you do that.
Bueno, de ahí salió, yo creía que efectivamente era importante tener una cooperación de los Estados Unidos de América.
He left that lunch with an agreement to help and thinking it was a very good and important thing that he had cooperation from the U.S. government now in his efforts to fight the Castro government.
Es importante que ustedes sepan que en la Cuba anterior a Castro, los cubanos estimaban y admiraban mucho a los norteamericanos.
It's very important for you to understand culturally, in the Cuba of that era, the Cuban population and the Cuban community had a very high estimation of Americans. There was a great affinity, there was a great affection, a great respect for all Americans.
Había muchas inversiones norteamericanas en Cuba. Para que ustedes se den cuenta de la importancia que tenían los norteamericanos en Cuba, el Banco Central estaba compuesto de 5 directores. 2 de ellos eran banqueros norteamericanos.
Cuba had the United States had a tremendous amount of investment and presence in Cuba at the time. Just to give you an example, at the time the central bank was composed of 5 board of directors, 2 of which were Americans.
Mientras en muchos países decían, por razones X, gringos a los americanos, como despreciando, en Cuba nunca se usó esa palabra.
Just to give you another sense, the word gringo, which was very popular in all Latin America as a disparaging term for Americans, was hardly ever, if ever at all, used in Cuba.
Yo pasé un entrenamiento donde aprendí. Yo era un simple contador, joven, tenía 30 años. Pero eso me sirvió mucho porque era un entrenamiento y me convirtieron en un conspirador futuro. Pero lo que deseaba en ese momento Bishop, y por lo tanto lo hacía, en el caso de reclutar mis servicios, era que yo creara una campaña para desestabilizar el gobierno de Cuba.
One has to remember that at the time, for him, he was just a layman working in a bank. But the training that he underwent at the direction of Phillips was very important because what it ended up doing was convert him and turn him into a professional conspirator, which is what he ended up doing. The objective, according to Mr. Viciana, of what Phillips asked him to do was engage in activities that would destabilize the Cuban government that would be forthcoming at the direction of David Atlee Phillips.
Hice con mucho éxito campañas que casi desestabilizan al gobierno cubano.
And he was
en el orden monetario y en el orden de la educación.
And he was very successful and very much destabilizing, with Mr. Phillips' guidance, the Cuban monetary and financial system, and even in the educational sectors as well.
Pero el gobierno de Castro, increíblemente, tenía tanto respaldo que eso, aunque fue un éxito mío personal, fue un fracaso porque no pudo desestabilizar al gobierno.
But because the Castro government had such significant popular support, in spite of what were successful destabilizing efforts, they weren't sufficient to topple the government.
No, digo que no. Contesta la segunda pregunta. Dile que no, él me daba todo tipo de ayuda personal para mis gastos, pero no daba dinero para la causa.
Phillips gave him all types of financial support for his efforts, but not some of the specific activities that you said. It was financial support for other means.
Okay.
Pero yo quiero decir, para que ustedes entiendan bien, cuando ya se pasó otra etapa, Bishop me quiso reclutar a mí. Yo era de la generación de Fidel Castro. Mis amigos eran los amigos de Castro. Yo pude haber sido parte del gobierno de Castro, pero no había lógica que yo abandonase una empresa donde yo tenía un gran porvenir. Trabajaba para la primera empresa millonaria de Cuba y no tenía el propósito de trabajar con el gobierno. Pero es lo que me propone. Usted es quiere infiltrarse dentro del gobierno de Castro. Es decir, no lo vamos a comprometer a que usted nos dé información militar, no, sino simplemente que usted participe dentro del gobierno de Castro.
He was of the same generation of Fidel Castro. Phillips knew this. He was friends with a lot of folks that were mutual friends with Fidel Castro. Phillips knew this. So Phillips's next engagement of Veciana was to ask him if he would be interested in serving in the Cuban government as a double agent. Not necessarily to report military secrets, but to be there so that Phillips would have a direct tie into intelligence within the Cuban government.
Inicialmente yo le dije que sí,
Initially, he told Phillips yes, that he would do that.
pero cuando me fui a casa y me puse a meditar que si yo me convertía en un comunista disfrazado, mis hijos y mi familia me verían a mí como comunista y se quedarían en el país. Y volví hacia él y le dije, lo siento, pero yo no voy a infiltrarme. Pero yo sí estoy seguro que cerca de Castro, él infiltró a más de una persona muy cerca de Castro.
Upon thinking about what he initially told Phillips, that yes, he would infiltrate the Cuban government, he went back home and had a kind of a long thought process and actually ended up rejecting the offer because he didn't want to serve as a communist in disguise and have his children stay in Cuba and his children think they were growing up with a communist father and having to live on the island. Now that said, Mr. Veciana believes that Phillips was successful in getting other individuals to penetrate the Cuban government.
Hay algo importante. La CIA, desde el primer momento, yo no sé, pero yo creo que a espaldas del Ejecutivo, de la Presidencia, decidió matar a Castro, a tratar de matarlo a cualquier. Pensaba que la muerte de Castro terminaba la Revolución Cubana.
He is of the opinion that from the moment he took power, the CIA made a decision without the knowledge of the executive branch to assassinate Castro, that was what was in the best interest of U.S. policy.
Y yo creo que en ese momento ellos estaban correctos. Si Castro desaparecía, con él se moría la revolución.
And he thinks that the CIA was correct in that judgment. Had Castro been killed, the revolution would have died with him.
Y entonces él me dijo, tú no eres un hombre de acción propiamente, pero sí eres un organizador.
So he said, you may not be a professional assassin right now, but you are someone that gets things done. So we can use you.
Vamos a preparar un atentado para matar a Castro aquí en La Habana.
Let's prepare an assassination attempt to kill Castro here in Havana.
Y eso ocurrió en septiembre estaba preparado para octubre del 61.
And that was planned for October of 1961.
Fracasó cuando era una organización perfecta, con una bazooka y personal entrenado que se había comprometido, iban a matar a Fidel desde un apartamento que estaba apenas de 80 metros de la terraza del palacio donde hablaba Castro.
The operation, in spite of being perfectly planned and conceived, failed in spite of having a bazooka at a privileged position about 80 meters from the presidential palace where Castro and government officials were going to give a speech.
Pero al final de mi vida he comprobado que los cubanos son valientes a veces.
So what he
Otras veces se les olvida.
What he ended up discovering at the end of his life was that Cubans are courageous people sometimes. Other times they forget to be courageous.
Y
Next question.
On that bazooka attack, I wanted to ask if Army Intel worked with you and David Phillips. And I also wanted to ask if Guillermo Ruiz phoned Sylvia Duran, the same woman who handled Oswald. Because I understand Ruiz spoke to Duran the very day or so that Oswald was in Mexico City.
no.
Y segundo, si tú sabes, él dice que Guillermo Ruiz habló con Silvia Durán, que trabajaba en el consulado el mismo día que Oswald estaba ahí. ¿Tú supiste de eso?
No, yo no supe eso.
The answer to the first question is no, not with him directly, and he was not aware of Ruiz speaking to Sylvia Duran the day of the Oswald visit to the embassy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Malcolm Blunt. Mr. Veciano, I've looked in a lot of files, and whenever I come across an FBI interview about you, the words straight, honest, and truthful always come up. I don't know if you could tell them. Yeah.
Dice que en todos los archivos que haya visto del FBI, las palabras que te describen a ti constantemente son honesto, dice la verdad y un hombre entendido.
Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.
What I was Bill just almost asked a question, but when I look through Army intelligence files, I find that there are many reports on Antonio Veciana that show that you were working for Army intelligence.
Dicen que él, en los archivos que haya visto hay muchos referencias que tú precisamente estabas trabajando por la inteligencia del ejército norteamericano.
Bueno, ustedes por supuesto saben que hay diferentes servicios de inteligencia. Lo tiene el Navy, lo tiene el Army, etc. En una oportunidad vino un representante que se identificó como del servicio de inteligencia del Army. Nosotros teníamos un grupo de alrededor de 20 personas en los Cayos de las Bahamas para atacar los barcos mercantes y hacer acciones en Cuba y acciones comando.
As you know, there are many different intelligence agencies within the military. There's naval intelligence, there's Army intelligence. And at one point, he had been approached by Army intelligence for some activities that he was involved in the Keys and the Caribbean. 20 or so of them were involved in activities,
The interesting thing,
anti-Castro
the
activities.
interesting thing for me is he has a working crypt, which is DUP 748, which means he's actually working on behalf of Army intelligence, U.S. Army intelligence, the 902nd Military Group, exactly.
Dicen que hay un diploma que dice que tiene un nombre, un número, un código asignado por ti, la inteligencia del ejército.
Bueno, a mí me hizo contacto en Puerto Rico alguien de la inteligencia del Army que dijo llamarse o se llamaba Patrick Harris.
There was a gentleman by the name of Patrick Harris from Army intelligence that approached him in Puerto Rico.
Él quiso
Correct.
que yo lo condujera a la base nuestra en las Bahamas y prometió que era posible que nos diera una ayuda.
He wanted him to direct them to their base in the Bahamas, and in exchange, he would give them some support or help.
He has the right name.
Y entonces,
Correcto.
He's not a liar.
entonces él fue a la base, estuvo unos días allí, regresó, se perdió y más nunca lo vi.
He says he ended up sending him to the base. He spent a couple days there, came back, never saw him again.
Okay. So was Mr. Veciano working for CIA and Army intelligence at the same time? Because that's not, under regulations, that's not allowed.
La inteligencia del ejército al mismo tiempo.
No, que esto fue la única relación, fue este hombre que me vino.
Yeah,
a ver.
the only engagement with Army intelligence was
Was
the
that
incident
one-
with
that
Patrick
one-off?
Harris. And to the extent that, yes, he was working for the CIA, it was as an asset of David Atlee Phillips.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just like to interject a couple of questions that seem to me important from what Antonio said at the very beginning or what your son said. How do your son, I believe it was, who said at the very beginning that you knew that there had been a group of people within senior areas of the CIA who were conspiring to kill President Kennedy, but how would you know that?
Dice que, según los comentarios que le dijo Carlos, que tú dijiste que tú sabías que había personas dentro de la CIA conspirando.
No, específicamente yo me refería a Phillips.
He was specifically referring to Phillips, whom he knew, based on the exposure to the meeting with Oswald and others, were involved in the plot to kill the president.
Hubo muchas conversaciones pequeñas, pero que eran evidentes de su intervención. Además, él era antikenedista. Por lo menos así se me manifestó a mí.
There were many conversations that, when you accumulate the details of what was said and conveyed to him, speak to the involvement. And in addition to that, Phillips always never missed an opportunity to talk about the problems with President Kennedy, his policies, and his administration.
But let's be quite clear, he never ever said anything in clear that indicated that he and perhaps others wanted the president killed.
Pero dice que Phillips había dicho algo específicamente directo a ti, que había revelado que querían matar al presidente directamente.
No, él nunca me admitió eso, nunca.
Phillips never directly told him directly that he was going to kill the president.
No. But to be devil's advocate, again, could it be possible that Phillips indeed wanted to use Oswald in some way, but not necessarily as an assassin of the president? That the operation, that the operation involving Oswald and the Cuban embassy in Mexico City was simply some, if you like, innocent, in quotes, deception operation.
Dice que jugando al abogado del diablo no puede haber sido posible que Phillips estaba utilizando a Oswald en un proyecto inocente. Que no
Todas
tenía
las
que ver.
conversaciones y los pequeños detalles que me hicieron hacer el rompecabezas. No hay la menor duda que Phillips participó en la conspiración de la muerte de Kennedy.
All of the conversations over the course of the dozens, if not hundreds, of encounters with Phillips form little puzzle pieces, which to him, he puts together and leaves him with no doubt that Phillips was at the center of the assassination planning prior to the murder of the president.
Okay, the very last point I want to make about this is Phillips is a senior person. He's supposedly been an expert of some kind, as discussed by Tony, for some time within the CIA. Why in the world, if he wants to meet with Oswald as a possible scapegoat for the assassination of President Kennedy, would he risk meeting with Oswald when he's due to meet Antonio in 15 minutes' time? And one of the first things I think that was said that the only reason that he saw Phillips with Oswald was because he arrived 15 minutes early for a meeting. It sounds like appalling tradecraft.
Phillips es una persona tan inteligente y profesional, ¿cómo él se iba a jugar si él estaba planificando a crear que Oswald fuera un chivo expiatorio? Se va a permitir que se vea en público 15 o media hora, una hora anteriormente. O sea, ¿cómo se la jugó tan irresponsablemente si esa fue la
Porque en ese momento todavía no estaba decidido, se estaba decidido matarlo, pero no estaban en el último momento aparentemente.
To answer your question, Mr. Summers, Mr. Viciana believes that at that moment, the end game with Oswald had not yet been decided. And it wasn't until November when that happened. So he was obviously he was an asset, he was someone that had a relationship with Phillips, but Mr. Viciana doesn't believe at the time that Oswald had been designated and selected as the patsy, or else he might have acted.
Además, Phillips era un hombre muy inteligente, muy profesional, pero cometió varios errores.
He says, and yes, while Phillips was a capable, serious, good at his job official, he made a lot of mistakes.
Ladies and gentlemen, with your indulgence, and I'm hopeful with your understanding, you must accept that we're running quite late now. We have time for a single question, and then it will be time to thank Antonio Veciana and you for doing a superb job. Please continue, and then we'll have to take a break.
I was wondering, we've all seen countless photographs that are supposedly of Oswald, but obviously they're not all of the same person. The one we know as Oswald was very scrawny. Some of the other guys have more hair and look huskier. Was it the Oswald that we know about, or one of the other photos of supposedly the same man that you saw?
¿Fue a México?
Sí, dicen que hay una foto de Oswald.
No hay la menor duda que fue el que viajó a México.
He has no doubt that the individual that was presented to the press of the world on the evening of November 22nd as the assassin of President Kennedy was the man he saw in Dallas in September 1963. Okay.
And did you think that he was also trained to be an obedient conspirator, Oswald was?
¿Tú piensas que Oswald también, como te entrenaron a ti a ser un conspirador profesional obediente?
O era un loquito, dile.
He says Oswald was a little bit of a nut.
Carl, go ahead.
Yes, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover documented that the day after the assassination, Mr. George Bush of the Central Intelligence Agency was briefed by the FBI on the reaction in the Cuban exile community in Miami, indicating some foreknowledge or association with that community. Based on your high level of activity and respect in that community, can you comment on George H.W. Bush's activities as a CIA operative in the 50s and 60s, including Bay of Pigs Association, and whether he was connected directly or indirectly with the activities in Dallas?
He personally never experienced George H.W. Bush as a CIA operative in Miami. Not to suggest he wasn't, but he just didn't experience it.
Do you recall the circumstances under which you realized that the man you knew as Bishop was David Phillips, and did you ever have any doubt about that identification?
I'm sorry, the question is what? Well,
do you recall the circumstances under which you made the linkage that Bishop was in fact Phillips, when that happened?
Bueno, me di cuenta cuando Fonsi me llevó la foto de todos los diplomáticos y una revista en una librería y yo lo vi que era él.
if you read the last investigation, Gaten Fonzi writes very eloquently about the time that he took Veciana to the public library because he knew that there was an issue of People magazine that had David Atlee Phillips talking about the Association of Retired Intelligence Officers. Veciana knew the instant that he saw him that it was him, but obviously chose not to confirm it to Mr. Fonzi. If you have some time later and it breaks, you should hear his stories about that famous lunch. And more importantly, on the night of the assassination, I don't want to tease anyone, but he thought he was going to be arrested as a conspirator and a patsy in the case once he saw that.
One last question, and then we move on. Go ahead.
Last question.
Yes, thank you. A name, Luis Posada Carriles. Does he know him? Did he know him? Was he involved to his knowledge?
Lo conozco perfectamente, el famoso comisario Basilio, el hombre de los americanos en Venezuela.
He knew him perfectly well. He was the Americans guy in Venezuela.
Cometió un gravísimo error que no quiero aquí señalar.
He made a major tragic mistake that he doesn't want to reveal here today.
Yo quiero hacer una manifestación ahora.
Okay. He would like, if you would indulge me, just like to say a couple more comments. Is that
Yes,
okay with
absolutely.
the panel?
Sure, certainly.
Yo voy no a defender ni a justificar a Phillips, ni lo voy a hacer con la CIA, ni lo voy a hacer conmigo mismo.
He's not here to condemn or justify the actions of David Atlee Phillips or the Central Intelligence Agency or even for himself.
Pero para juzgar a un hombre o a una situación no se puede hacer 40 años o 20 años posteriores porque se comete un error. Hay que trasladarse a ese momento para entenderlo.
But you can't make 40-year and 20-year later judgments about a situation and expect to understand it. You have to take yourself back to the moment in time to put it in its proper context.
Phillips era un don nadie, pero hizo una carrera con la CIA que lo llevó a ser un jefe importantísimo y además tenía conexiones con el sector industrial militar.
Phillips, you have to recall, before his affiliation in the CIA, was a nobody. And it was only when he entered the CIA and was recruited to join the CIA, reached the highest levels of influence, and he believes influence that extended to...
Los industriales que le daban todos los contratistas de los militares.
And he had many relationships with military defense contractors as a result of his participation in the CIA.
Por lo tanto, era muy lógico que le fuera fiel a la CIA desde el primer momento hasta el último.
With that in mind, it would make total sense that he would be totally loyal to the CIA from the first day of his employment till his very last day on earth.
Fue La CIA fue quien lo hizo a él un hombre importante.
The CIA is what made David Atlee Phillips a man of influence and importance.
Segundo, ahora quiero hablar de la CIA.
Second, now he wants to talk about the CIA,
No lo voy a justificar, no los voy a justificar ni a defender,
which he is neither here to justify or defend.
pero posiblemente muy pocos de ustedes entienden lo que voy a decir.
But it's quite possible that many of you will not understand what he's about to say.
Estados Unidos de América es un imperio o un líder en el mundo.
The United States of America is an empire and a leader throughout the world.
Tiene muchos enemigos por envidia posiblemente.
That has attracted, over the years, many enemies, possibly enemies jealous of the position that we occupy in the world.
La CIA tiene que proteger a esta nación.
The CIA has to defend this nation.
Olvídense de la ética.
Forget about ethics.
No existe la ética en los servicios de inteligencia del mundo entero.
No intelligence agency in the world has any ethics or etiquette.
No le pidan a la CIA que no haga, que diga mentiras y que no manda a matar. La CIA sí dice mentiras y manda a matar, pero está cumpliendo con su obligación de proteger a este país.
You can't accuse the CIA, or you can't ask the CIA not to lie and not to kill. The CIA lies and the CIA kills, and they do so because they need to protect the United States.
Hay una gran realidad. Será antiético. Olvídense de la ética. El mundo está lleno de contradicciones. Estados Unidos, el presidente Truman ordenó lanzar 2 bombas que mataron 200,000 personas.
You have to understand. You have to understand that there are some things that you have to forget ethics and forget our moral structure. In this case, the CIA has conducted things under the creation of presidents.
Los aliados bombardeaban las ciudades alemanas, matando a muchos civiles.
The Allies during the Second World War engaged in many airstrikes that killed many innocent civilians.
Pero sin embargo, eso había que hacerlo, porque cuando se puso las bombas, lanzó las bombas en Japón, salvaron la vida de muchos millones de norteamericanos y de millones de japoneses, porque si hubieran tenido que invadir los Estados Unidos a Japón, hubieran muerto muchos más japoneses que esos 200,000.
Which is why that the logic is for the droppings of the bombs in Nagasaki and Hiroshima that perhaps saved hundreds of thousands of American lives in an invasion and potentially hundreds of thousands of Japanese lives in a future conquest. You begin to understand the tricky morality and ethics that sometimes exist in defense of a nation.
Sé que ustedes no aceptan eso.
He understands that many of you might not accept that premise.
Pero si un funcionario de la CIA, algo que es tan feo, torturando a un hombre, consigue salvar miles de vidas norteamericanas, lo van a hacer ahora y siempre lo seguirán haciendo.
But one must understand that if a member of an intelligence agency is willing to commit torture in the name of saving the lives of many of his own countrymen, he has done it in the past, he has done it in the present, and he perhaps will do it in the future if that is what is necessary to save lives, whether we want to accept that or not.
La vida es un baño de lágrimas que realmente los humanos vivimos desde que se inició la humanidad haciéndose guerra y matándose unos a otros.
Unfortunately, life we have seen is, and in many cases, a stream of tears where humans engage in activities like war and violence and death and destruction. It's been the story of human history.
Y yo no vacilaría, y por eso entiendo la CIA, de hacer algo que sea reprobable, pero que salve la vida de mis semejantes con esa actividad mía.
Which is why in other cases one must judge within a context and understand how activities as reprehensible as they are, and they are, the CIA must be judged sometimes with that context in mind.
Just in light of the last statement, which I greatly appreciate, but I have to ask, based on previous conversations I had with Mr. Veciana, would there have been an anti-Castro movement without the CIA? You've been involved in it from the beginning. And please explain your answer as to whether or not there would have been such a movement without the CIA.
The CIA was solely responsible for the anti-Castro movements that led to the organized activities with resources and funding.
Can I ask a point of clarification on what was said earlier? If I don't know if I understood this correctly. Did Mr. Veciana say that David Atlee Phillips imagined and organized the entire Mexico City scenario?
Bueno, primero yo quiero hacer una aclaración. El hecho yo no puedo nunca aceptar que funcionarios de la CIA hayan matado, asesinado al presidente porque creían que eso era lo más correcto. Eso sí que nunca lo justificaré.
One thing he wants to just make crystal clear before he answers your question, he will never, ever condone decisions by individuals affiliated with the CIA to murder the President of the United States. He thinks that is a reprehensible and unacceptable and unjustifiable act.
Y ahora no voy a justificarme, sino voy a defenderme.
And he's not going to justify himself, but he does want to defend himself on one point.
¿Por qué antes nunca dije quién era Bishop? Lo estuve negando hasta el año 76.
Why is it that it took until today for him to reveal the identity of David Atlee Phillips as Maurice Bishop? An identity that he had been protecting certainly up until 1976 and without the final confirmation until this day.
Entre mis pocas virtudes está el agradecimiento y la lealtad.
Amongst his few virtues and a code that he lives by are two, loyalty and appreciation.
Lo he exigido a los subalternos míos y lo he practicado yo.
He has asked that of his subordinates and people that have worked for him, but he has always lived himself by that code of loyalty and appreciation.
Yo comencé con Phillips a través del nombre de Maurice Bishop y quiero que me entiendan a mí. Yo consideraba que el delatar a Phillips era traicionar, convertirme en un traidor y un chivato.
He always struggled with the idea that by giving Gayton that final confirmation that Phillips was bishop, he would be betraying his own code, a code that he always lived by, which was loyalty and appreciation. He felt a sense of loyalty and appreciation for Phillips for giving him an opportunity to serve in the role that he never would have done had Phillips not recruited him into the CIA.
Yo agradecía a Phillips, que era un simple ciudadano, un cubano de una isla relativamente pequeña, de 6 millones de habitantes en aquel tiempo. Y él me hizo ser de pronto una persona que yo me consideré importantísima.
You have to understand that Phillips allowed this simple working man in Cuba the opportunity to become an important person who was playing an important role in the future of Cuba.
Después de hacerme alguien importante que creyó en que yo era capaz de desestabilizar económicamente al régimen de Castro, me dio la oportunidad de ir de asesor del Banco Central de Bolivia. Claro, con sus objetivos.
And with this faith and belief that Phillips conveyed in him, he even allowed him to go to Bolivia under the auspices of the USAID to be a consultant to the Central Bank of Bolivia.
Algo increíble e incomprensible.
Something incomprehensible and unbelievable.
Hacía 15 años que yo no trabajaba en bancos.
It had been 15 years since he had worked in banks, yet Phillips was able to make it happen.
Y que había sido considerado en la prensa como un terrorista.
In spite of the fact that in the national press he had been regarded as a terrorist and had been confined to Dade County, which is where Miami is, Phillips was able to facilitate all of these things and make these things happen.
Y de pronto llego a ser asesor de un banco central de un país como Bolivia.
And then he was able to become a consultant to the central bank of a country like Bolivia.
Es decir, yo sentí admiración
He felt admiration for Phillips,
y creí que él, al igual que él le debía mucho a la CIA, yo le debía mucho a él.
and just like he recognized Phillips owed a lot to the CIA, he felt like he owed a lot to Phillips.
Y le quise ser leal todo el tiempo hasta que las circunstancias me hicieron, había pasado mucho tiempo, desertar, porque además él cometió muchos errores.
And he wanted to try and maintain that loyalty for him with his code of loyalty and appreciation until many years passed and circumstances began to change, many of which were because of mistakes that Phillips made.
Aunque había habido algunas últimas diferencias con él, donde se cayó mi ídolo, aquel hombre que yo lo veía tan profesional, tan extraordinario, que yo admiraba, frente a mí en una mesa donde él no sabía que yo iba a estar.
And it wasn't until he sat face to face in front of him at a luncheon that Mr. Fonzie arranged, many of you may have read about it in the last investigation, that this person that he had so respected and so admired, who he had literally considered a hero, collapsed as an icon before his very eyes because of how he conducted himself at that luncheon.
De pronto vi a mi ídolo en su condición humana.
All of a sudden, he saw his idol as just a human being.
No era el ídolo que yo creía.
He wasn't the idol he thought he
Era
was.
un humano que cometió muchos errores.
He was a human being who made many, many mistakes.
Otra pregunta.
I have one more, if I may.
Oh,
Si tú piensas que si Phillips sabía lo que iba a hacer Oswald en la embajada de México en Cuba cuando en septiembre de 64.
Todavía había la decisión de asesinarlo, pero la oportunidad se dio cuando fue a Kennedy a Dallas y cometió un error personal tremendo con al ir con un carro de...
No, pero ella dice, si tú piensas cuando Phillips lo mandó a Oswald a México, si él
No, estaba preparando el plan.
yeah, he thinks Phillips was very much aware, and that was part of the plan to send Oswald to the embassy in Mexico. Yes. No, he says it was Phillips' idea.
Mr. Vecchiano,
Hold on one second. Are we okay on time? Do we need to
May I
stop it?
just-
or-
One
We've been
last-
okay for a while, but that's all right. That's all right. It's appropriate. It's okay.
Okay.
I think the answers are the questions and the answers, most of them have been extremely important, and this is an unrepeatable event, probably.
Exactly.
Many
I
people
have
in-
one last question in a moment, but please go ahead and ask
Thank
yours
you.
first.
many people in this room have spent for many, many years trying to get to the bottom of this. They spent their life's work trying to get to the bottom of what happened to our president. We all remember where we were when President Kennedy was killed. So I'm asking you, why are you coming forward today, now, at this meeting?
dice que todas las personas que están en este salón se han dedicado su vida, sus recursos, su tiempo personal para tratar de entender quién mató al presidente y por qué hoy has venido tú a este salón y a hacer estas declaraciones.
Bueno, yo tengo ya 86 años, voy a cumplir próximamente en unos días.
He's about to turn 86 years old in a few days.
Yo, en un principio, como cometieron muchísimos de mis compatriotas en Miami, creían que Kennedy era un traidor. Después comprendí que no hubo tal traición, que él como presidente hizo lo correcto en defensa de este país.
Like many of his exile contemporaries at the time in the early 1960s, he believed John F. Kennedy was a traitor to the Cuban exiles and to this country. Yet, over time, he came to recognize that President Kennedy was not a traitor, but someone who acted in the interests always of the United States of America.
Y empecé a estudiar a Kennedy y el discurso que él produjo en la American University. Vaya, no quise morir sin decir la verdadera historia. Fue un gran hombre, un gran presidente, y no mereció ser asesinado.
And in his research of President Kennedy's life, he came across the American University speech, which to him was one of the greatest speeches ever given by an American president. And after studying that speech, he decided he couldn't go from this world without saying that John F. Kennedy was a great man and a great president who had great vision for this country and the world.
I have another question for Tony, but I think that was such a fine conclusion to this session that I should not ask it. I will ask it after this session.
Thank you all very much.
Let's thank Fernald Armand for doing a superb job. Members of Marie Fonzi's family, Antonio Veciana and his son, and of course Anthony Summers, thank you so much.